For so many years, I've never had a firm answer to what my all-time favorite romance anime is. There's most respected, most adorable, most realistic, most hilarious. That one's kind of a toss-up. So when a friend of mine kept egging me on to check out the show called The Dangers in My Heart, I went in fully expecting to walk away with the feeling like that was nice. But what's really insane is this show that I instantly started off hating the main character and really struggling to commit to it. By the end, it had me so emotionally invested that I may have finally found what my all-time favorite romance anime is. Dangers in My Heart from the outside seems like your usual guy meets girl story, but how many of those shows have you watched where the main guy wants to kill everyone in his school? Yeah, this is Kyotaro Ichikawa, someone who right away is the most difficult main character ever to connect with and root for, considering he wants to be a bloodthirsty killer that's going to kill everyone in his class, and the show playing it off as if this is supposed to be some goofy, lighthearted thing. I want to leave and not waste any more time on this, since the obvious answer is, oh, but he changes his ways because he met this girl. What girl? Well, that's the one he wants to kill the most. Anna Yamada. Something that I will admit is kind of funny at first is the noticeable difference in ability Yamada has reading the room compared to Ichikawa. Yamada is the prettiest girl in school. She's literally a model, but keep in mind she's in middle school, so be careful, you horn dogs. That does have a group of friends, but rather than being a typical airhead stereotype, or actually a lot of stereotypes you see some of the popular girls be in anime, she genuinely is kind of dense to people and things around her, not seeing the signs others give her, which leads her to misreading things sometimes. Meanwhile, Ichikawa on the other side, while reserved, loner, and small, can read almost everything happening around him, including all the things he can't help but notice Yamada is oblivious to. But that's kind of about it. I can see some arguing for the case of Ichikawa doing certain things for Yamada instinctually that proves he's a nice guy, and that's what makes us get attached to him alongside Yamada, especially comparing him to all the other horn dogs in their class. Another reason I wanted to leave. The start of this show is way too uncomfortable for me with how predictable it seemed. It also didn't help that Ichikawa sort of accidentally starts stalking Yamada, watching her do stuff, and then doing stuff for her even though they barely know each other. But something happened pretty early on that kind of saved the show, that had me very caught off guard. And without being specific, basically Ichikawa has a realization about Yamada and himself. One that I'm not used to seeing romance characters have so early on in a story, and in the tone that it did. It's almost like he was trying to figure this out himself, and now that he has, it kicks off what is the true beauty of this show, being not necessarily the will they, won't they potential romance that could happen here, but rather just getting to watch what is one of the most genuine relationships I've ever seen between two characters. Every episode of this show is basically entirely focused on watching Ichikawa and Yamada grow with each other. And I don't mean grow in the way of obvious self-help, but rather just learning about who they are, along with what they mean to each other. It doesn't do this by flinging tons of drama, fluff, dragged out circumstances, love triangles, misunderstandings, and all the other things that are just kind of staple of romance anime. It does this by creating a legit connection between these two characters, and you really believe in it. We primarily see the story unfold through Ichikawa's perspective, which is why it's hard at first to make the commitment to this show, but once he realizes the truth about himself and Yamada, it's sort of becomes a journey to see not only how Ichikawa handles having someone as out of his league as Yamada have interest in him as a person, giving us that underdog story, rooting for him to believe in himself more, but also how his connection with her is starting to make him come out of his shell more and more, leading him to come to terms with parts of himself that he may have abandoned. Even though it's basically all through Ichikawa's point of view, we somehow still can read almost everything Yamada feels and wants when she's around Ichikawa. She's incredibly opposite of him in the way that she kind of wears her heart on her sleeve, showing various expressions, emotions, and giving us insight to her character, whether she means to or not. But what I like about Yamada is she's not the typical popular girl you see in rom-coms having a loud or abusive or tsundere attitude. She is someone that can be bold, sincere, and so hard on herself when the thought of letting others down hits her, which is something Ichikawa has sort of avoided letting himself experience for quite a while now. They both individually aren't the most interesting characters, but whatever this thing they have with each other is. The true main character of The Dangers in My Heart is whatever this relationship between Ichikawa and Yamada is. There are side characters, but they're so in the background and not important, other than essentially being plot devices to give us either insight on how one or the two are feeling, or putting the two in a particular circumstance. Every bit about this story is fully focused on seeing just Ichikawa and Yamada's interactions and connection grow. And that's something I'm just not used to seeing in many anime. Now, there is obvious romantic tension that happens, but the way it's handled feels so much more like a genuine crush that you also like being around, rather than just being because of the crush factor itself and us, the audience, knowing they like that person. Ichikawa and Yamada share such vulnerability with each other that makes them connect so fast that you really don't think it's a matter of will they, but rather when they. It's one of those pairs that you actually aren't at the edge of your seat waiting to see a confession. Maybe that's because it feels like they're already in a relationship right away, because of how just authentic and real they are with each other. The main character of the show isn't a character itself, but what the two characters are together. How many times have you felt alone? Have wanted someone to listen to you? Wanted someone to tell you it's going to be okay? Wanted a friend that can be totally honest with you? Thought something is just too good to be true? There's something about Ichikawa and Yamada's very spontaneous and unlikely bond that you're very happy to see unfold as authentically as it does. And that being the absolute 100% focus of the story. I've barely said much about the plot of this show, but that's because this is the plot. What does it mean to really care about someone? To be around them, to learn about them, to believe in them, to root for them, and everything that encompasses what a real relationship is, whether it's platonic or romantic. And what does it mean to let the dangers in your heart happen? All the risks, pain, joy, and more you'll feel when you are so honest with someone. It's scary. The stakes of this story are so absent in an external sense, but are constantly present in an internal one. Ichikama and Yamada as a duo are why you're here to the end. And honestly, I didn't entirely care if it even became a romance or not. I really can't recall a romance anime. I wasn't counting down to the inevitable confession that will hopefully happen. But with the dangers in my heart, I was here the whole time to just watch whatever was happening between these two happen. I think this show became my all-time favorite romance because no other anime has had me more invested in seeing an actual relationship grow. The moments these two bond with each other, put their feelings out there, or are there for each other, or just get to know each other, all contribute to what this show made me learn. And that's how terrifying and beautiful a real relationship can be. 君が僕に